Hi, ladies. Today is Sunday, April 11th, 2021. So I wanted to give an update about um, estrogen priming for my second IVF cycle. I haven't started it yet, but since I've been giving you updates on how the process works, I just want to give you an update on where I am now. So, like I said, I will be starting IVF cycle number two soon, probably in less than 2 weeks. And I am, this time, which we did not do the first time, I will be doing estrogen priming. And that for me involves using some estrogen patches that are to go on my lower abdomen, and they are to be changed every other day. So, so before starting those, I was to still do ovulation testing, which I thought I didn't have to do IVF. So it's kind of funny that it made its way into IVF because I don't like ovulation testing because I never know if I'm doing it right or if my strips are accurate. And of course, that is what happened this time. The first time I ever did ovulation testing was in February. So February, I did it again in March, and so I had to do it for IVF. And since I decided to move forward with IVF in April, so I had been doing it this month, and when I did it in March, it was kind of cool because it was more, it lined up perfectly. And when I did it in February, it was all over the place. Like I didn't get a peak. Maybe my hormones were all over the place. I don't know. It was only my second period in over a year and a half. So it'd been a long time since I had a period. And it was my first period in January. So by February, I think my body was still adjusting since breastfeeding had I think my period all over the place, or my cycle all over the place. So and like I said, you can have an irregular cycle when you are breastfeeding. And so my February ovulation testing, I just thought it was a complete fail because my period was, I'm sorry, not my period, my hormones must have been all over the place, or just the strips. I don't know what was going on, but I was using Clear Blue Advanced and the Pre-Mom strips, and I guess they're called Easy at Home, which you use with the Pre-Mom app. And those strips were just, they never, I guess I got a high, but I never got peaks on them. They never really got truly dark, or as dark as the control line. Even using the Clear Blue Advance, I didn't get a peak. So I was also focusing too much on the apps, and I learned that I can't let the apps, when they say is your predicted ovulation time, like I have to, you can use it as a rough reference, like just as a guideline, but I think I was like using it too much. It's like, okay, this is what it said, so this is what it needs to be. Um, so in March, when I started ovulation testing, I pretty much kind of didn't focus on what the app timeline was, and I just focused on what the strips were saying. And it was great because I was able to get, I got several days of a high, and then I got a peak on both my Clear Blue Advanced digital and my Easy at Home strips. And it was great because the peak was on the same day for both of them. And so I felt like I really turned a corner and I knew what I was doing, or at least I felt like that. But of course, now that it is in April, doing it for IVF, where it was a little more riding on it, to getting it right, I had a situation where I only really ovulate. Well, I was testing with the Easy at Home strips for, I don't know, maybe 6-7 days. And I was testing with the Clear Blue Advanced digital strips or digital test for 3 days. And I knew I wasn't really going. I started the Easy at Home strips early, and I figure I wouldn't get a high for a little bit because I had noticed that well, at least I thought that my ovulation or peak day was later in the cycle, because I think it was running like between around cycle day 19 or cycle day 20, somewhere around that. So I was kind of shocked where I used my Clear Blue Advanced digital strips for 2 days. And both of those days, they said were low. And then the third day was a peak. And I was just like, wait, I didn't get any highs. I went from low, peak, and then that was it. And so I was just looking for a peak. And once you get to a peak on the Clear Blue digital advanced strips or tests, whatever, it's a mouthful, whatever, you stop. You just get to a peak. And as a matter of fact, if you don't stop, you can't even really continue to test with those, because it holds that peak on the screen for 48 hours. Like once it detects a peak, it literally just keeps the peak screen for 48 hours. So if you were going to test again the next day, it's going to have a peak. Matter of fact, I don't even know if it would actually do the test, but if it did, it would probably come back as a peak. Like it holds the peak on the screen. You get to a peak, you stop. With those, with the easy at home strips that you kind of just look at and determine yourself what it says. Those you can you can test whenever you want, however often, as much as you want. And if they actually do suggest that you continue to test after you get a peak, but I don't at this point. But it's just so you can see your hormone level go back down. But I didn't see the value in that. So anyway, I ended up testing, and I got low peak on the Clear Blue. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, is this right? So I went to read the instructions, and it says that can happen, that you might not always get highs in every cycle. You may not get a peak in every cycle, but it definitely says you might not always get highs in every cycle, and maybe your hormone level was just too low to detect the high. But that if you get a peak, you can rely on the peak, and that is in the instructions. So it's just happened to people before. So I was like, okay, I got this peak. It was earlier than I expected because it was only cycle day 16 for me. And I noticed, I believe that I was ovulating a few days later in my cycle. So when I saw the peak, I was wondering, but Clear Blue Digital Advanced is supposed to be like 99% effective, and it's like recommended. So it's like the recommended brand. It is also the pricier brand. So I decided, okay, let me test with the Easy at Home the same day and see what happens. Well, that didn't have a peak that day. That had a high, but not a peak. And I could tell it was a high because the test line was not as dark as the control. So if it's a peak, the test line has to be as dark or darker. So, and it wasn't. It was still slightly lighter than the control line. And so I was like, okay, this is a high, and I scanned it, and the apps were coming back saying it was a high, but it wasn't a peak. So I ended up getting a peak on the Clear Blue, but I didn't have a peak on the other strip. So I called the nurse line for my fertility specialist, and I told them, and they said, well, we would go with the Clear Blue Advance because those are really good and supposed to be really effective. So they considered it a peak, even though the other one said it wasn't a peak. And so I guess it's better to maybe be one day early than it is to be one day late, I guess. And the reason why the peak was important, was because a week later, so my peak was on, I guess, the 7th. So on the 14th, which hasn't come yet, my peak on the Clear Blue Advance was on the 7th. So on the 14th, I am to start the estrogen patches, and then I'll start the first one on the 14th, and then I'll go and change on the 16th, and then I'll change again on the 18th, and then on the 20th. Now, they told me that if I don't have a period, if my period doesn't start on the 20th, that I should call and then they'll reevaluate to either continue doing the patches, or to come in for a blood test and ultrasound. Now, I'm a little confused why they're doing that, because even having a peak on the 7th, my period is not scheduled to come on by the 20th. And again, that's because usually after you ovulate, and when you get a peak, you usually ovulate, I think, a day or so after that. But once you ovulate, it's like 2 weeks, 14 days plus 2 or something, that your period comes in that range. And so the 20th wouldn't be, exactly within the 14. It is a little early, but it is in the 14 days, but it's a little early, but I don't know. So that's the way they want to handle it. And so this estrogen priming, the purpose of it, and I may have mentioned it before, but the purpose is really so we keep all of my follicles at the same place, so that I don't have any follicles that are, larger or growing out ahead, because that's what happens normally. Your body, follicles grow, and that's normal every month. But with estrogen priming, is supposed to make it so that once I start the injections, everything is at the same place, so that once I trigger, hopefully everything is at the same place. Because last time when I did my IVF cycle, we didn't do any of that, and so I did have some follicles that were much larger and some that were smaller and things like that. So they kind of wanted to get things kind of at the same place, with the hope that I'll have a lot more eggs retrieved this time, and which means more embryos and all of that, because IVF honestly is just a numbers game. And listen, even only having 3 embryos, I still ended up with a successful cycle, so it's not that you have to have lots of numbers or lots of embryos. It's just that that's what they like to see. And the good thing is, if you have lots of embryos, you can freeze some, and hopefully won't have to start over from the jump. If you do another cycle, it'll be a frozen cycle, and you don't have to do all of these injections again the way that I'm starting over. So that would have been the benefit of that. But even having a lower number of embryos, I was still able to get pregnant successfully and have a successful cycle. But with that said, it was no reason why I should have had a low number of embryos, because all of my numbers look good, my hormone levels are good, my FSH is good, and all of that, and I have a large number of follicles, my egg reserve looks good, all of that great stuff. So what happened? So I don't know, but this is why we're doing the estrogen priming this time. And so this is where I am. I just wanted to let you know. So on the 14th, I will start my first patch, and I'll give an update on how that is. And you're just supposed to stick them on your lower abdomen. I don't know anything about how it works yet, but I'll definitely update you. But yeah, so this is for me, estrogen priming. I think they can do it other ways with like pills or something, but so I'm doing the patches, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's funny, I'm a little nervous, and it's weird, and I don't know why, because I've done it all before, and it was in 2018, but I've done it all before, and so it's still like I'm a little nervous because I don't remember everything. And then this estrogen priming is a new step, and I really want to make sure I do it right, because doing these things right is important. Doing the injections right is important. Can't stress that enough. So for people doing IVF, there's a free website that I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure I'll mention it later as I get there. That shows how to do all the injections. And last time I did IVF, I watched how to do each injection every single time I did the injections every night. And I think that was helpful, because I didn't mess them up. Didn't mess them up. And my doctor actually mentioned to me that people mess them up because they don't really do that. They think they know how to do it, and then they stop paying attention, and it's the little parts, so I kind of paid attention and watched them do it and did it with the video every single night. And I plan to do that again this time, because it also gave me comfort, so yeah, when you're injecting yourself with hormones or someone else is doing it, you want to make sure it's done right. And unless you have a nurse doing it or someone with some sort of medical experience, I think it's good to kind of like watch the videos. But I'll address that later. So the estrogen patches, I don't really think I can mess up. You put them on, you change them every other day. I mean, that should be easy, right? We'll see. So that's it, ladies, and that's where I am now. And I will continue to update you on the process. So wish me luck. And oh, and I forgot to mention, I did get a peek on the Easy at Home app, not app, strips, but it was the next day. So I got the peek and the Easy at Homes on the 8th, as opposed to getting it on the 7th when the Clear Blue said I had a peek. But again, I guess it's better to be one day early. That I did tell this to the nurses. They said go with the Clear Blue, because I guess they trusted that more. But I guess being one day early is okay, if that's the case, because I might not be one day early. Clear Blue Advanced did say I had a peak, but it never showed me any high days. It just went straight to peak, low, peak. I think that's why I question it, even though I did read that could happen. I think that's why I questioned it. If it said, low, high, peak, I probably wouldn't question it as much, but whatever. But anyway, that's it for now, and I will definitely keep you updated and talk to you soon.